Hello folks, Phil Gallagher aka ThrabenU here for another legacy video, but before I get started, I'm doing something a little bit special this week. This plug is going to be running in all of my videos this week, so if you've already seen it, feel free to use the timestamps down below to skip directly to the deck tech. This week, I am going to be partnered with Commander Sealed, and we are going to be doing some fundraising for charity. If you're not familiar with Commander Sealed, it is an annual event that takes place in New York every year. It'll be September 18th to 20th this year, and it raises money for two different charities, the Trevor Project and Trans Lifeline. Previously, they raised $44,000 split between the Trevor Project and Trans Lifeline. And this year, I will be doing my fundraising to support Trans Lifeline. Trans Lifeline is a trans-led and operated peer support group and crisis hotline whose vision is to fight the epidemic of trans suicide and improve the overall life outcomes of trans people by facilitating justice-oriented collective community aid. This is a cause that I have done some fundraising for in the past and likely will again during the future. I think it is pretty important right now in the United States to support these folks and honestly to support everyone. And so I'm going to give you some donation incentives. In the video description down below, the very first thing that will be at the top is a link to my personal fundraising page for Commander Sealed, and it will keep track of how much I have raised. So here is what I will say. If we hit a $500 goal, I will do another brew stream. Previously, I brewed with the community for about 4 hours and people really loved it, and I will commit to doing another one of those on Friday, June 12th. If we raise $1,000, I'm going to do a playthrough of the game Celeste. This is a game that is beloved by the trans community, and it just felt warm and cozy and appropriate. And if we raise $2,000, Bryant Cook has agreed to actually play Death and Taxes. None of this April Fool's Day, oh no, I submitted the wrong deck list thing. No, Bryant Cook says that he will play Death and Taxes for a video. And because I've committed to doing some fundraising and doing it the right way, I have also secured some matching. So if you make a donation, this wonderful person right here, that's Alan, aka Mental Misplay, amazing content creator, has one of the best cubes on the planet in my opinion. Mental Misplay has agreed to match up to $2,000 that I do via charity fundraising. So let's see if we can hit my $2,000 stretch goal, force Bryant to play D&T, and get it matched to a total of $4,000. I think that would be really cool. But honestly, even if we only hit the $500 goal, I think that is really good. And anything we can do to help other people, I think that's something we should be doing. So with that being said, thank you for your patience, and let's go ahead and get into today's video. Hello, Phil from the future here with a couple of updates regarding fundraising and additional incentive goals because we are crushing it. Thank you all for your support. Number one, Mental Misplay, aka Alan, had agreed to match the first $2,000 that I raised. Well, we're way past that already. So my sponsor, Moxfield.com, has agreed to match up to another $4,000 raised. So everything from $2,000 to $6,000, they will match. Moxfield is based as hell. If you're not already using them, you should be. They're great folks there. So thank you to Moxfield for your support. And you can always find my deck lists there. Number two, I have three additional donation incentives coming. At the $3,000 mark, Jarvis U will do a legacy stream, which he hasn't done in a while. At $3,500, notorious shitposter Caro IRL will be doing a legacy stream. And at $4,000, I will be lining up and working with a trans artist to get some new tokens made. We're still working on details on that, so I don't want to commit to anything beyond that yet. All right, well, let's get to the magic. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another legacy video, and today I got quite the challenge from Titania. And that was to build a blue-white control deck that wins with Karn the Great Creator. So these are two ideas that, in my mind, are pretty opposed to each other. Because Karn wants fast mana, your Ancient Tombs, your City of Traders, your Tron lands to power it out quickly. And those lands are colorless. And Blue-White Control wants you to have colored pips for your Ponders, your Brainstorms, your Swords to Plowshares. So this was quite a challenge to construct. And I had to go back a couple of years in order to find something to use as a basis point. But a few years back, I found a 5.0 deck list that had Karn the Great Creator as its primary finisher, although it was using like Narsets and Teferis as well. And we're going to trade out some Planeswalkers for the more recent stock up as a source of card advantage. If I'm going to win via Karn the Great Creator, I think I need two things going on. Number one, I need a couple of different ways to win. And number two, I need ways to use Karn as a controlling element that is synergistic with the remainder of my deck. So we are going to try to do the Rest in Peace Helm of Obedience combo in this deck, with the hope that shutting off graveyards is relevant in the flow state metagame where Reanimator is starting to pick up a bit more. And so many decks are using their graveyards incidentally in some way, be that to just grow a creature like a Barrogoyf or a White of the Reliquary, or for something more unfair like a Hogak. This stops dies triggers that Rest in Peace theoretically does a lot. The danger of building a deck that looks like this is that Rip is not good in multiples and does not pitch to Force of Will, and Karn is not good in multiples and does not pitch to Force of Will. So we may be doing something that is just a little bit crazy here, but we kind of know that from the get-go. This is conceptual. Is Blue-White Control using Karn as the finisher viable? And we're going to try to have a handful of controlling elements that we can fish out of the sideboard with Karn to be good. We have a very, very light red splash here, and while that is for our secondary finisher, it's also for things like EE and the Ruination that I am very, very clearly pointing at Tron. I'm not sure if Ruination is actually better than something like Blood Moon or Back to Basics that comes down a turn earlier, but hopefully this is a pretty strong one-sided haymaker. It may just be that trying to fight on the land axis is just simply not worth doing. But with Karn fighting on the artifact basis, I'm hoping it's a reasonable thing to do. I wanted to have, let's scoot you over, I wanted to have a reasonable looking creature to put in the sideboard to tutor for, so the times where I don't have Rest in Peace, I can still fish out a win condition. Wurmcoil Engine was the best thing that I came up with off of the top of my head. This is going to be reasonable to help stabilize the board in a fair matchup. We can't do some of the things that this deck normally might like to do, such as Cityscape Leveler. I think that is just simply too much mana, and Wurmcoil Engine is already pushing it at 6. This is one of the better things that I could come up with. And the hope is that in a matchup like Show and Tell, I can float a Rest in Peace early on in play, and then if my opponent casts Show and Tell, I Helm them out in response. So like Show and Tell resolves, I put in Helm, I Helm them, and if they take an extra turn with Emrakul, whatever, they're dead. Another reason I think the Blue-White Control with Karn is not a great idea is the amount of pressure that it puts on your sideboard if you want to have a robust Karn board. Blue-White Control, or Blue-White X Control as we are splashing red, often has situational game 1 cards that are not good in every matchup, and we're not going to be able to just board all of those cards out. So, for example, if my opponent is playing a spell-based combo deck that literally has 0 creatures, Wrath, Prismatic Ending, Swords, Erode, Supreme Verdict are now bad cards. And I probably can't replace all of those. And so I think just in terms of general theory, the Karn board works against what a Blue-White Control fundamentally wants to be doing in post-sideboard games. But we're here to try it out. Before I get going here, I do want to give one update to our current fundraiser that is going on. I am recording this video on Tuesday, June 2nd. Yesterday, Monday, June 1st, I recorded the first 2 videos for this series. And overnight, we already have crushed the $2,000 stretch goal. So I'm going to work on getting some new stretch goals. I'm going to maybe work and see if I can get another business to do some additional fundraising matching. I can't make any promises, as this is not something that I was anticipating happening, but that is a great sign that things are going well. So shout out to everyone in the trans community here. I hope this support is meaningful and useful to you all, and just shout out to my YouTube members in particular. You have given me the warm and fuzzies, so thank you, and thank you to everyone else who gives support this week. With that being said, if you need some cards, please consider checking out my sponsor, toamagic.com, and use promo code ThrabenU when you do to save a little bit on your order. With that being said, let's battle. All right, opening hand is pretty reasonable here. We have the ability to resculpt this into whatever it is I feel like I need for the matchup. I don't need spot removal. I do need white mana. I don't know what I'm looking for with Ponder here. I think I'm going to pass the turn with the ability to emergency brainstorm if something very, very scary goes on the stack here. No play from my opponent. Island. Valk. Ori Steelcutter. I can Prismatic Ending that away. I now know what matchup I'm looking at. I think I'm willing to just use mana for Brainstorm here. If I'm going to do that anyway, doing it where if my opponent dazes, they don't get a monk seems good to me. All right, I get to get rid of one card from this, because I assume that I am fetching a basic Plains and attempting Prismatic Ending. I think I'm just going to get rid of the very easily dazable stock up here. All right, and Bobble will make a monk. Bobble will cycle immediately, and I'll take a little damage. My opponent sees Rest in Peace, and I think I am okay just sending this immediately. If it works, it is amazing. There's a weird lag burst here, but my opponent is casting 8 days. There it is. So I can ponder and look for another one of those. I can erode some monk tokens if I absolutely have to. DRC is fine. But I might just kind of die before I get to cast a lot of my spells. Like, I can play a Rest in Peace to make DRC worse. Not terrible. So I suspect that I am island cycling this for a Tundra, playing a Tundra, eroding DRC, despite the fact that I could make it worse with Rest in Peace. Opponent has declined to use Erode's ability. I will just erode again. And this is not the clean answer to Ori Steelcutter that I would like. I have some things like Supreme Verdict and Wrath of the Skies in my deck that can help fully clean up the Ori Steelcutter. But this flow state stuff is now happening. And not having time to deploy Rest in Peace because I'm under the gun from Ori Steelcutter is a disaster, right? Because I had to use a removal spell on this. And my opponent gets their flow state value when I was hoping to stop both of those things. Brainstorm not finding a Force of Will or Force of Negation when I cast it in response to Ori Steelcutter was quite bad. Although, admittedly, it would not have worked because my opponent had the daze. Yeah, and these bolts going to face are quite bad here. Like, I am taking half of my life total from this attack. I'm down to 5. I think I am going to Brainstorm. And now, like, the 1-for-1 removal spells aren't particularly great. I certainly don't have time to try to set up Rip Helm here. Let's send 2 things away. Intend on Ponder Shuffling here. Yep. Swords one of these. I'm going to do this on my own turn for the same counterspell logic as before, where I don't want to cast spells if I can help it on my opponent's turn because it's easier for them to trigger the flurry for Ori Steelcutter. Flow state leads into flow state. Thanks, I hate it. We're already dead here, unquestionably. Another land drop comes down. Yeah, not even fucking close. GG. Generally speaking, we are not going to sideboard very much. I can play some Pyroblasts here as generic catch-all removal spells, and probably will do so. I'll trade Force of Negation, which is a 2-for-1 for the 1-for-1 of Pyroblast. Something that we learned in a previous league It is just worse to be the thing that fights against flow state instead of the thing that just plays flow state. Like, fuck, 2-0 landers in a row. Our previous exploration of Rest in Peace as an anti-flow state card were not successful. I think I am just going to assume that keeping my removal spells is fine and do this. Third Mesa, pass turn. Possible that Brainstorm is better than the 4-mana Supreme Verdict, but can't be countered is a big deal. I do have to decide whether or not I am trying to do a Surveil land. With my opponent pondering, I have the time to just get basics, and accordingly might just do so. Try to make Tundra the last land that I play from hand to cast Supreme Verdict. Alright. Stock Up is the sort of draw that can help me get back from under a mulligan, but my card advantage is at 3 mana, whereas my opponent's is at 2 mana, so, you know, not great. I'm just talking about other blue-white control options. There was a recent 5-0, either blue-white or Jeskai Control deck list that was playing both Flow State and Stock Up. Alright, we're chilling. I think I will go ahead and cast the Stock Up when it is not pyroblastable. Basic Plains here, Island here. This is Dazeable, which I don't like, but I already have something that is a very, very good Daze target in hand anyway. Yep. Volcanic Island comes back down. There is a Kori Steelcutter, which I can Prismatic Ending. And my opponent has already used a Daze. My next card will be played around Daze, which is nice. But I'm still taking 2 damage this turn. And the Prowess Monk is still around afterwards. Hopefully I clean that up with a Supreme Verdict when their next threat comes down. I'll take 2, 16. Fourth Aerlingas is not what I am looking for right now. Kori Steelcutter does bite the dust, though. Wasteland is very bad for me, as it takes me off of all 3 of my relevant cards. I guess I'm happy I didn't get Wastelanded, but this second Kori Steelcutter is a major pain in the butt after I have mulliganed to 5. And if I Supreme Verdict to answer the Monk tokens, it doesn't actually answer the Kori Steelcutter, which will still eat me alive. So I'm taking 5 here. And I think at the point where I get Wastelanded off of this Tundra, and my opponent has Kori Steelcutter, I am just fully dead. We did not really play Magic the Gathering in that round. Hopefully that is not indicative of the remainder of the league. GG. Alright, opening hand looks reasonable here. I will be pondering for more mana. I theoretically have Rest in Peace into Karn into a win. Opponent says good luck, have fun. Could use a little luck after that mulligan to 5. Yeah, let's just send Supreme Verdict to the very bottom of this, and then take the lands. And if I know that Supreme Verdict is going to be a reasonable card in the matchup, I will just keep it, rather than shuffle it away. Polluted Delta had some trouble loading. Polluted Delta can be a pretty wide range of things. I think I will just fetch away the Supreme Verdict. I will get a basic Plains here and throw down Rest in Peace in the absence of not really knowing what I'm facing. Like, it is potentially a very good card if my opponent is on something like Reanimator. It's relevant if they're playing something like Dimir Tempo, potentially making Murktide Regents or Nethergoyfs significantly worse. And it's at its worst if my opponent is something like Doomsday. Brazen Borrower enters the exile zone. So Brazen Borrower is a way to take a Rest in Peace out of play. Brazen Borrower probably indicates that my opponent is like somewhere on the tempo spectrum. Do I play around Bowmasters and Daze? I can ponder Swords a Bowmasters that is played in response, but if I play a land, I can play it around Daze, which I think I am going to do. Medium stuff there. I think I will just shuffle that. Gotta brainstorm anyway. Now I will ponder. Wouldn't hate finding a Force of Will effect. Hey, a Force of Will effect. Second Karn on bottom. I'll take Force of Will right now. And let's see what my opponent is up to. Not just a Surveil land. Oh, it's Dress Down. Sure. Ancient Tomb. I see. So my opponent wants to keep this body around. I think I will just Swords that body. Meh. I think I have to force one of those. That's not great. That's now going to resolve. And I think I'm going to go ahead and Swords end of turn, despite the fact that Days exists, because I would like to cast Stock Up and then do a 1-mana removal spell on one of these. And I think I actually Swords this one because Prismatic Ending can hit this and can't hit Null Drifter. So I think that is my theory here, despite the fact that Dreadnought kills me way faster. And I think I hit with this enough that this is better. You know, I should just not talk. My deck is just full of single target removal spells, and we utterly whiffed there. What a disaster. So I can instead choose to play Karn there and wish for EE. Yep, that occurs. So I'm going to get whacked for 12, and I'm just dead a good portion of the time here. Another Ancient Tomb. Oof, that can look for Force of Will to protect. I hate that. That's a whiff. So I don't need dungeon information. Yeah, so I can get Karn, get EE. That's not going to do it. Yeah, I am fully dead there. It feels unlikely that I miss. I'm not going to take the time to run the numbers on it or anything, but that feels not great. I imagine that Force of Negation is not particularly amazing here. I think I'm going to sub those out and play a couple of Pyroblasts. Okay, I have reasonable resources here that don't really do anything. I'm going to assume that this game goes long enough on average that blue cantrips can kind of do their thing. I'm going to ponder and start looking for single target removal, which that is not. Stock Up is a good hit, though. Totally happy with that. Maybe I can start looking towards just becoming the Monarch on turn 3 and protecting it with Force of Will. That's not total crazy person stuff. Polluted Delta comes down for a Ponder. The opponent does keep cards with the Ponder. More land is not exactly what I'm looking for here. I can use Meticulous Archive at the end of my opponent's turn to try to set something up here. Let's Surveil. Off Archive. I'll take that. Now I can pitch Force of Will to Force of Will while keeping Stock Up. Let's go ahead and shove forth Aerlingas and hope that it works. I don't know that it does, but I think this is my easiest way to work towards a win. Force of Negation. Are we fighting? I think we're fighting. I will pitch Force of Will. Alright, little human knight token that could. In we go. Alright, cool. I am the pretty princess. I will draw a card for being the pretty princess. Picking up a Pyroblast. Opponent's surveilling. And they're keeping cards. Ancient Tomb comes in. There is a draw 2. And just in case you're not super familiar with this, the on-cast trigger here means that, like, countering these is not particularly good. Stock Up, leaving Meticulous Archive open. Stock Up, leaving Pyroblast open. No Plateau in the deck to do both of these at the same time. I think I'm going to leave Pyroblast open. I can hit for 2 first. Drop my opponent to 12. And stock up. So I don't need Rest in Peace. I do like ending Ponder. Send the rest of those to bottom. Now I have a blue card in my hand for if I randomly spike a Force of Will. I did not. Underground Sea comes down. That is a Torpor Orb. That is happening. I'm very good against Dreadnought and pretty bad versus Null Drifter. Yeah, it is the Null Drifter, which is a colorless spell, so we're not Pyroblasting that. I can Swords it, but, like, my opponent goes up on cards as that happens. Swords you. I think I'm going to ponder and see what happens with this, and that will kind of dictate how I feel about Prismatic Ending on Torpor Orb, which I might just need to do. These aren't great cards. Get another land. Unfortunate. In for 2. I think I played the wrong land, because this doesn't represent untapped red, whereas this or this would have. So that's an error on my end that causes me to take one more point of damage than I need to. So there's white and blue on the Torpor Orb. And then I will draw my card for Monarch. I unfortunately don't have a blue thing to pair with that. I've drawn a bunch of cards off of being the Monarch, and I still just feel like I'm very easily in a losing position. Yes. Dreadnought occurs. None of my 5 cards interact with that, unfortunately. Thank you, deck. Very cool. So I now just need to spike an answer to that on my end step Monarch draw. Please. Opponent is fetching. You have like Bowmasters as well. Hull Breacher. I will counter that with Pyroblast. Draw my card. Oof. Maybe my opponent just dies to that though. Yeah, I just produced 10 power with that next turn. So this is terrible, but maybe it has worked itself out. I'm at 4. Opponent is the Monarch. I think I can counter something better than Ponder. So if I do 4th Aerlingas for X equals 5, I have 10 power from that plus the 2 that I have on board. I think I probably Force of Will another creature that comes down that would get in the way of that being lethal. I have to protect 4th Aerlingas there. That's my way back into this one. Oh? Ah! I want to fucking vomit. I'm so upset right now. That keeps me off of Force of Will, which in turn means that I don't get to 4th Aerlingas. What a disaster. Yeah. Uh-huh. Very cool. Oh. Well, that's not perfect, but I'm alive. All right. White. 1, 2, 3. I'll leave 1 up to play around the hypothetical days. The issue here is that I have exactly 1 card remaining in my deck that produces a creature. So my opponent very likely has a Monarch for the rest of the game. All right. The good news is that if I get 4th Aerlingas, I will just kill my opponent. Like they are at 4 life. Hello, Karn. What do you do? Tutor for Torpor Orb? I think like probably tutor for fucking Wormcoil Engine. Honestly. No. There is a dress down. Opponent now gets stock up. And this one is just absolutely slipping away. I am dead to that if I don't top deck an answer to it. And my opponent gets another Monarch draw here. That'll bring them up to 4 cards total. Alright, I mean, I'll take it. That hopefully keeps me in the game for a little while longer. Again, though, it's not fantastic. Alright, well, I will use my Force of Will. Yeah. Still alive. Opponent does get an island. The flash creatures like Opposition Agent are now threatening to be lethal. Torpor Orb is here. Stock up is devastating for me. Opponent brainstorms. The Ancient Tomb is technically tappable one more time. Once they do that, Force of Will is offline though. So they could tap that for, an Opposition Agent at my end step to attempt to kill me, or a Null Drifter. Fetch land comes down. One of these 2 cards is no longer functional. Opponent up to 3 cards. Alright, let's ponder, find 4th Aerlingas, go home. Yeah, I mean, I'll cast a stock up for sure. Cast that. I think I don't shuffle there. Stock up for stock up. Okay. I don't mind Brainstorm to get rid of that land, but I think I just value the swords pretty highly. Now I'm going to shuffle and do an Opposition Agent check. All right, there is the Opposition Agent that I was checking for. So I will swords that. I'm not casting another spell this turn. I have 1 Force of Will in my deck, which I will probably hard cast. Let's get the mountain. I guess I play stock up now, rather than waiting. Stock up into stock up. Opponent had Force of Will and they didn't fight over the lethal threat. Wild. And also didn't fight over the first stock up. What did they pitch to that? Press down. My issue here is that, the Monarch thing is still just happening. Come on, singleton copy of 4th Aerlingas. Darn. No. I get consigned. Note that on turn 11, Karn is not representing lethal. which is like another strike around trying to build a blue-white control deck around Karn. Like, the best it does there is represents a Mycosynth Lattice the following turn or a Wormcoil Engine the following turn. So, like, I don't know that this is even good. Damn it! Yeah, that's what happens when your opponent is the Monarch. Opponent brainstorms. I am dead to a flash creature. The game slogs on. Opponent now has their stock up and plays a Phyrexian Dreadnought. Lethal threat is here. Well, my opponent has 14 cards remaining in deck. Maybe we deck them. I'm only half kidding. Like, theoretically, this game should end, right? Polluted Delta. Fetching to 1. Pondering. That's a Null Drifter. Draws my opponent 2 more cards. 9 cards remaining in deck. And opponent draws down to 8 cards remaining in deck. Unfortunately, I will be showing myself the door here. And we lose that one handily. Although it took a long time, we lost that one once we lost the Monarch. GG. Alright, opening hand here is kind of mediocre. I don't really know that I mulligan it. I'm going to try to use a Surveil land to smooth this out and hope that my opponent is playing fair creature stuff where Prismatic Ending and Erode are relevant. Thought Seize. We had a lot of information out of this combo. That is taking the Force of Negation that does not have a paired card with it. So these cards are probably not great. Is it a combo deck that Rest in Peace is relevant against? I am willing to find out, as there is very, very high upside here if this is something like a Reanimator deck. Well, all right. We know what's up. So let's turn Prismatic Endings into Containment Priests. My cat Poe is complaining so loudly. Apologize if some of that gets on camera. And this is kind of the problem I talked about in the deck tech, where in the rounds where we know we are playing against certain types of combo decks, we don't physically have enough cards to bring in to take out the cards that are likely going to be bad. I'm going to board in Pyroblast where Wrath of the Skies is, in case my opponent has a Show and Tell pivot. Yeah. I will absolutely keep Rest in Peace with Force of Will back up. Lotus Petal. Unmask targeting me. Pitching a Dark Ritual. Kind of want to just Force of Will that and not let my opponent know that Rest in Peace is coming. But I think their Unmask takes my Force of Will anyway. And so I just save a blue card by not casting this spell. Alright, my logic is correct. Stronghold Gambit. Alright, well I sure don't have a creature, so that is Raph and Mikey coming into play immediately. In for 7. Taking an Atraxa with it. Revealing a shit ton of cards, including notably Douthie Voidwalker. There is a Show and Tell pivot as well. Stronghold Gambit potentially means that I bring in Lavinia as just a random creature that can disrupt a Stronghold Gambit. And those are both around, so I am fully just fucking dead. GG. I can bring in Lavinia. I also could technically bring in Wormcoil Engine as another juke for that. Like, Supreme Verdict is incredibly slow, and the one thing that it does is pitch to Force of Will. Alright, I go down 1 card that is pitchable to Force effects. Some of these decks have 15 card pivot plans out of Reanimator, so my Rest in Pieces may be dead versus that sort of stuff. This is fine. It's got a Force of Will, and I can brainstorm in response to something. Lotus Petal. Bad lands. And a Douthie Voidwalker. I'm very unlikely to just die to that card. I will do something in response to it. I think just secure my next land drop. Let's secure Volcanic Island and then let that resolve. Land and pass. Have Pyroblast available for Show and Tell. It would have to be like Lotus Petal into Show and Tell, which could happen. The looting I will let resolve. Again, I don't even know how much reanimation stuff is in my opponent's deck at this point. It's just looting lands away. I'll just take this hit here, and I will potentially brainstorm at my opponent's end step. Sewers, getting rid of and unmask. You've got it. Let's brainstorm like this. Blah. Put back some Karns. I'll redraw one of them. If I cast stock up, I am dropping Pyroblast for Show and Tell. I think I still need to spend my mana. I will take Force of Negation and Wormcoil, assuming that my opponent has... I don't know, I can just take Rest in Peace and work towards Rest in Peace Karn. Let's do that. The next turn I can play Rest in Peace with Pyroblast available. That's fine. Not gonna counter something that looks like that, especially with Rest in Peace coming. Alright, yeah, that's just some more like land type stuff. I will take a little damage from Douthie. And the just overall mana value of everything that I have is very high. Let's do Rest in Peace. If nothing else, it shuts off Faithless Looting Flashback. More mana from my opponent, which apparently they need. Yeah, I was just thinking about that. I think my opponent is just going to cash that in for a stock up, which I will counter. Opponent didn't even attempt to go the distance with Douthie Voidwalker. There is a Show and Tell. I will fight over that. Let's do Force of Negation and keep the more flexible Force of Will. Excellent. Now that Douthie is not in play, I have some Karn-based lines that are kind of interesting. I think I don't put the thingy into my hand. I think I will just plus and permanently nuke Lotus Petal. And I hope to draw a land and Karn minus land from my opponent. Lotus Petal. It's not a relevant card right now. I did not draw a land. So Karn is not currently lethal. I can put the Helm into play, which I guess with Force of Will backup I will just do. Doesn't feel great that my opponent gets another turn here, though. Opponent fetches. No Surveil land. All right, we have put a win on the board with Karn, the Great Creator, as intended. However, the Karn did not feel good, even though it won me the game here. GG. All right, opening hand is fine. I potentially am going to need to ponder to look for a little bit more mana. I'm very well covered versus fair stuff. I think I am, going to just ponder and try to secure my next couple of land drops. This is fine. Bam, bam, bam. And we'll see whether or not we want that Rest in Peace. If we don't, we can brainstorm it back. The Rest in Peace is a very high variance card in terms of whether or not it's going to be good. If we start seeing things that are indicative of like Flow State or Murktide Regent, we can jam Rest in Peace next turn. Opponent fetches. Esper. Resolves. Brainstorm is a generic good first name. Opponent name's Felia. Not in my deck. Hello, Cabal Therapy. Beloved card with flashback that I have cast many times on this channel. Get the fuck out. Alright. You will not get the fuck out. Yeah, this is what I was talking about earlier when I say like it's generally better to be the Flow State deck than the deck that is hating on the Flow State decks. This is turn 2, Flow State is on, sorry, turn 3, Flow State is on, and my opponent stopped the Rest in Peace that was meant to check that. Let's do a little sculpting here. Oh god. Well, we very much have redundancy for the same things here. We might be playing against something in like the Cephalid Breakfast ballpark, in which case keeping something that can deal with an Urza Saga is okay. Might go like bam, bam. Intend to fetch, but just pass the turn for now. I don't think I want to just brainstorm. Yeah, that's fine. Am I going to get... Well, maybe I should have just swords to that while I had priority. Fetch. Yeah, I think I messed up. I think I should have just swords that while I had priority. Brainstorm. I think I will put back swords. Now this can resolve. Opponent name's Erode and does hit. So it's like I eroded Baleful Strix, but my opponent doesn't get the land and I take a card out of their graveyard. I guess I'll take it. I think I will brainstorm here while Bowmasters is not a concern. Oh my god. Well, I guess I'll bury a Wrath of the Skies. And holy hell, I have drawn all the same side of the deck, so we're very good against my opponent's creatures, which all probably cantrip or create multiple bodies. Ponder is fine. Tamiyo is pretty easy to answer. I think I'm just going to untap and Prismatic Ending that. And if I need to, I can then Swords in response. Goodbye, Tamiyo. Cool, didn't need to. I just have like no source of card advantage. Building around Karn is so much worse than building around something like Tamiyo. That's annoying. Yes. 1 mana short of being able to counter that. I was just gonna cash it in for a card immediately, but this just gets to tick around. Yeah. This destroys artifact creatures and enchantments, notably not planeswalkers. So Teferi Plus is up. My opponent has 7 cards in hand. Alright, reasonable. So my opponent wanted to counter Rest in Peace earlier. There might be some things like Barrowglyphs coming that make this good. I think I'm just gonna do like Rest in Peace and Brainstorm here. I have a bunch of stuff that I would not mind getting rid of. I've made flow states worse. Rest in Peace doesn't necessarily stick around forever, though. Belia. Belia Teferi is kind of annoying. The way to reset the loyalty. Actually, turn off auto yields. Ajani is here. I'm just gonna blink Ajani. I'll go to 17. My opponent makes another cat. I can kill Ajani, Felia, and the 2 cat tokens with Wrath of the Skies. That would get rid of my Rest in Peace, though, which is kind of annoying. I think I will Brainstorm first. Alright, this is the long-term plan. This is how I win. Get rid of the Force of Will that is probably dead forever, and maybe 1 land. Go to Arid Mesa. Crack this. Get an island. White, white. This is enough value that I am okay with this, and I'll leave open Swords for Felia for if this gets countered, which I view as pretty likely. I will Swords Felia. I'm not on board with either one of these things getting blinked repeatedly. Fairy pluses now can be cashed in for a card as of next turn. I still just take a decent amount of damage here. Archive. No to that. I guess I don't need to overbuy here because I will never cast another Wrath of the Skies with these going to exile. So just doing this for X equals 2 is totally fine. We get the instant speed Ponder in response, followed by Brainstorm. Alright, pay 2 into this to kill Ajani. This gets rid of my Rip, but I think I need to do it, otherwise Ajani Bounce is on the table. Does mean that my Karn needs to work significantly harder to win the game. There's a Tamiyo. I can't Swords. Means that my opponent is free to Brainstorm. We are rather bad versus Planeswalkers. We kind of figured that out in the 4th Eorlinga's Monarch situation in the previous rounds. Ball Therapy. I think my opponent still knows about a Swords from earlier. Yes, they do. So, 4 mana plus 3 mana. I can Karn for a Pithing Needle and shut off one of the 2 Planeswalkers. I guess I can Ponder first and see if I hit Prismatic Ending. I don't. Just shuffle there. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fetch. I want more information about my other cards before I cast this Karn. 4th Eorlingas. 4th Eorlingas is pretty cool. Can do that and Erode here. I think I am going to Erode to Fairy and turn on another side of my deck. My opponent having Swords, and if I go in on 4th Eorlingas is pretty awkward. I think I'm going to do it anyway. It does occur. That's fine. So I'm just hoping for Tamiyo plus, then Karn minus, get Pithing Needle, stop Tamiyo, stabilize the game. That's kind of the dream here. That dream is not going to be actualized, though. That Cabal Therapy is now going to get my Karn. Ugh. Maybe that's a reason to play Karn the previous turn and just Karn Pithing Needle Tamiyo immediately. But that leaves Teferi, which can bounce it. Alright. You have to work so hard. Stock up. Karn and Ponder. Karn and Verdict. Maybe Karn and Verdict. So Problem is that plussing on a cat just kills Karn. Hopefully my opponent misses that line. I get a Pithing Needle. I stop one of the two Planeswalkers, and the other is just a problem. I can stop Ajani and then attempt to answer a creature and Lattice before Tamiyo ult kills me. Avenger. This keeps the Karn alive. Like a Bowmaster ping can finish off the Karn. Tamiyo is such a problem. The Planeswalkers are such problems. Damn it! Oh, sweet. Opponent missed the line that kills Karn immediately. I am grateful for that. I don't think it matters. I think Tamiyo is still going to ultimate, and I'll just lose. Yeah, like, I can Verdict, have my opponent draw half of their deck. I will just lose to that. We're very bad versus Planeswalkers. GG. Are not winning games here. Also, I am playing these decks that just have tons and tons and tons of single target removal and just eating it to creatures as well. Pyroblast for Planeswalkers is very reasonable. That's about all I can do unless I want to go into, like, Ruination. I think I am getting rid of these. Those become Pyroblasts that are 1-for-1s instead of 2-for-1s. Having Wrath of the Skies in my Rest in Peace deck is proving awkward. The original build that I looked at had 4 Supreme Verdicts, which seemed like overkills and seemed slow. Alright, this is, I think, what we're doing. I'm going to need to use my cantrips to find a white mana source. This is probably okay. None of those are white mana sources. I will shuffle that. There we go. That's exactly what I'm looking for. Tundra and pass. I will pass right back. It has Underground Sea and passes back to me. I don't know that I can cast Stock Up immediately and tap out when I suspect that Felia could be coming in this turn cycle. Hey, it's Felia. I will just Swords that. I think I'll call that good there. I could Brainstorm there while I know Bowmasters is not an issue. Wasteland. Narset. Hate that. I will Force of Will that, despite having a Pyroblast that could solidly answer it. I don't have red mana. Alright, I now don't hate Brainstorm to try to set up Stock Up with Pyroblast backup. Absolutely not. Alright, I will take the Erode, and then cast Stock Up, trying to get past that Prismatic Ending. Cool. I want the other Stock Up, and I don't hate the land. I will Ponder. I don't hate finding red mana. I don't know that I want 3 lands in a row on top of my deck, even with Stock Up here. I will just shuffle that. Supreme Verdict is an okay pickup that I can't actually cast yet. Opponent Brainstorms, and can Ponder to shuffle. No 4th land drop. That doesn't immediately cast... Let me rephrase that. This can cast Pyroblast, but would be wastelandable. I'm going to just Stock Up off of all of these. Alright, so I could get Prismatic Vista for red and play Rest in Peace and take away the graveyard as a resource. I also do need the second white source for Supreme Verdict. I guess Flooded Strand can just get another white source. Let's do both of these. Fetch. Just realized I'm also significantly down on clock. I will need to be a little more cognizant of that moving forward. I do need to win 2 games here. Ball Therapy resolves. Naming Force of Will. That is a fully dead card. It just reveals my hand to my opponent for 1 black mana. They do not get to flash it back. I know that my opponent is kind of choked on mana. There is a Karn. I don't want to put Helm in hand and have it get taken. I think I'm just going to minus here. Say yes. Pick up Pithing Needle. Play Pithing Needle. Bell Pierce. Sure. And then next turn I can attempt a Helm kill. Yeah, and that's why I did not put the Helm into my hand. Opponent takes Erode. Are you dead though? Yeah. I will get my Mountain out of my deck. Pyroblast is online. I might just go ahead and use this as a Surveil land here. My opponent wants to wasteland that when I have this much mana. They can. Land goes bye-bye. No thought to it whatsoever. Here's Brainstorm. Those cards are very bad. Put back 1, 2. One of these 2 is going back here. I think I'm going to put Supreme Verdict on top of my deck. And I can draw it if my opponent plays a creature and be happy enough with it as a 1-for-1 removal spell. Alright, cool. And I'll fetch. Just getting a Tundra. And now we're just playing past the turn and dealing with whatever horseshit my opponent does at my respective end steps. Bowmasters. I think that resolves and I swords it. I can take one from the token for a little while and presumably clean it up with another card. All right, I'm down to 14. I'm just gonna hold that to shuffle away with a Brainstorm. There's Felia. I will counter that. Opponent brainstorms in response. That's fine. I don't think I'm gonna Pyroblast that. I would rather Pyroblast a Narset or a Teferi. I will take one from my opponent's next attack, going to 13. Yeah, I'm not going after basic level cantrips. Rubland. I'm just gonna take another hit or two from that token. That's just another basic cantrip with Rest in Peace in play. I'll take one from another attack. No big deal. Still at 12. Land drop is not what I'm looking for. I believe I have 4 basic islands without double checking. I think that is still live. I'll also just put that in play to be a shuffle effect in the future. I will be down to 11. That is going to resolve. And this is where, like, the Supreme Verdict, Wrath of the Skies style cards would be pretty good. Karn. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yep. That seems good. There's my last basic island. There's Karn. Karn minus. Say yes. Get Helm. Play Helm. Alright, cool. 12 turn game there. I've got a little less than 9 minutes on clock for the last one here. The Rest in Pieces did some stuff there in stopping Cabal Therapy flashback, potentially Ajani dying. Glow State was worse. Rest in Peace had text. But boy, I would rather just have a Murktide Regent that just kills my opponent in 2 shots. It does feel like the Karn is working very, very hard. Medium opening hand. I have 2 basic lands, assuming I don't get Thoughtseized off of my basic land. I think I will keep it. I'm just not overly excited. I think we only won that one because my opponent got stuck on land for so long. Cool. Not getting Thoughtseized off of my 1 mana source is sweet. Pass turn. Polluted Delta. Down to 19. My opponent is not going to name Lorien Revealed, but I also just cannot take that risk. There's a basic island. Hopefully this misses. Force of Will is a good first name, though. Swords to Plowshares also hits. Flashback could potentially get 2 copies of Prismatic Ending, which is gross. I think I am going to try to continue to secure land drops here. Yeah, this is fine. The Verdict is now 2 cards down. But the 2 pair that I have here are pretty bad versus Cabal Therapy. I'm going to Force of Will that. Otherwise, I lose either Force of Will or Prismatic Ending to it outright. Devastating. Oh, I'm so fucked. That gets a flipped Planeswalker that also takes my 2 Prismatic Endings that normally would be my answer to said Planeswalker. Ah! This is rough, folks. Rip Prismatic Ending. And I don't get to Mystic Sanctuary, that sort of thing, back later in the game because I am a Rest in Peace deck. Alright. Fetch. I think I will pick up the red. Or does white matter more right now for these? Maybe white matters more right now. I can also legitimately just see the argument for island. Alright, I will take another stock up. Swords doesn't look amazing here. I think I'll just take land. Second island? Maybe second island. I'm just going to get buried by this Planeswalker. And Karn is not a very good win condition versus things that are already on board. I could find Rest in Peace and, like, maybe that gets me out of this spot. Am I just going to, like, Karn for Pithing Needle and then wipe the board of the cats? That is, I guess, a plan. Let's do that when I have 5 mana. Helm? I want this to be able to do 5 mana Karn stuff. And then, do I take this? Or do I just take the other Karn? Take the rip. Island, pass turn. Things start getting pretty bad if my opponent can play another creature here that gives them value. I'm okay if that gets swept up in the Supreme Verdict, but this is just so much damage. Opponent could do Thalia Blink here. I don't think that is correct to do, though. Alright. That's another way to potentially deal with this. I could take 8 and go to 2. It's probably worse than just Supreme Verdicting and let my opponent have 1 cat that I deal with later. Let's clear this. There could be just another flash creature end of turn, though. There's not. Cat. Red. Karn with Pyroblast backup for Pithing Needle. Yeah. Opponent has highly efficient cards like Spell Pierce. Replicated Consign. Means that 1 Pyroblast is not enough. This cat machine is devastating. I will take some damage. I am at 8. Planeswalker is a problem, as are the cat warrior tokens. I am just gonna trade cards here, I think. I don't know how I am dealing with everything that's going on here without doing combo win, which I don't think I have time for. If that Baleful Strix resolves, I can make 3 tokens with 4th Airlingas, 2 of which are answered immediately. And the onboard cats are just going to eat me alive. And I'm at 1. I think my opponent's got it here. Yeah, naturally having a Helm in my deck would be an out here. That's a good name. Ugh, we are working too hard today, unfortunately. GG's. Are we 1-3 now, I think? Yeah, we're 1-3 now. I don't feel good about the deck. Alright, opening hand is kind of whatever. If Rest in Peace is good, hand does stuff. If Rest in Peace isn't good, we're going to be very reliant on 4th Airlingas. Ah, shit. Well, we can try out the Ruinations in the sideboard. That's kind of where my head's at right now. I probably need to brainstorm for counter magic here. Oh my god. Hello, Rest in Peace. Thanks for showing up today. I appreciate it greatly. What a whiff. Oh, opponent has blue in their deck. I mean, that's resolving. So they are not playing the, highly overperforming Tron deck. They are playing a blue big mana deck. Could be Coveted Jewel. I'm thinking about whether or not I want this Tundra in the deck later. I'm going to have white for access to Wrath of the Skies, but I do already have blue. So I now can't deal combat damage to my opponent this turn and become the pretty princess, so I guess I am doing stock up. Karn is real. I legitimately think I'm just going to take 2 copies of Karn in case 1 gets eaten by Force of Will. This is going to stop the One Ring. It's going to stop big mana like Grim Monolith and untappers like Voltaic Key and Manifold Key. Yes. Another island. Yeah, we are doing Coveted Jewel crimes here. So there's 3 mana and then 3 cards as well. And we're going to start seeing my opponent copying Coveted Jewel. And I'm going to enjoy a nice glass of water, and whatever happens here, and hopefully I'm alive to Karn at the end of the turn. Palantir in play. What is this? I haven't seen this in a very long time. Wild. What a pull. Hopefully that means that I'm just alive. You can draw the shit out of a card. Maybe the first time I just take 6. I don't even take that much. Alright, you get some stuff. I play Karn the Great Creator. One has 8 cards in hand. I do get Force of Willed, which is why I took a second Karn. Presumably, my opponent with this much mana and that many cards wins the game. And, there's a Karn. Opponent minuses. They don't have enough for Lattice, but they do have Paradox Engine, so any one spell played here probably is game over for me. At this point, I probably just give you the card. You're discarding anyway. I don't have Force of Will back up here, but I'll play my second Karn. Yeah, that untaps all my opponent's shit, by the way. And again, every card that doesn't pitch to Force of Will that is in our deck to support the build, like the Rest in Peace, the Karns, kind of rough. Are we done? That's sure looking like it's going to be lethal. Karn minus or Lattice, yeah, sure. GG. 2 Karns, not enough. I am interested in Lavinia. I could be convinced to play Pyroblast and Ruination. My opponent has a decent number of basic islands, though. But, like, Swords to Plowshares is not really doing stuff. Wrath of the Skies, like, technically does stuff, kind of. I can also probably bring the Damping Sphere into the main deck, as Karn Resolving also already does a decent amount against my opponent. And like Prismatic Ending and Supreme Verdict are things that I can consider taking out. I think I'm going to, I don't know. Supreme Verdict pitches to Force of Will when I'm a little light on things that pitch to Force of Will. But Ending can sometimes snag a Grim Monolith that is played out to float mana across a couple of turns to make it to 4 or 6. I think I just say no to this. If I Force of Will and pitch Stock Up, I just really don't have anything going for me with the rest of the hand. Ah, no, go to 5. All right, the 5-card hand is a keep. I think I always get rid of Island, and then I get rid of one of these two. It's more mana to get to Karn, but it's a stronger card. I think I am going for Monarch on turn 3 to recover from this, and I Surveil immediately and top any land. Yes. Island, go. Blooded Strand, go. City of Traders, Grim Monolith, pass. So, I would just like to point out that I have Ruination in my deck right now, and I have 2 non-basics myself. Let's get white here. Fourth Aerlingas for 1. In we go. Alright, I am the Monarch. That's a big deal. I will probably Force of Will, pitch Brainstorm at the opportunity to shut down some big 6-mana card. Like so. Then I attempt to use Stock Up to find my next blue card. Alright, yeah. You get the draw 3. Now, this does have text, where if I get through, I gain control of this. That would be swell. And One Ring Protection doesn't stop that, because it's when you attack and aren't blocked. But if my opponent can kill me here, they can kill me here. Transmute Artifact. Just change a Coveted Jewel into a Coveted Jewel. Oh, it's Chaos Defiler. Wasn't expecting that. And the One Ring. Thanks, I hate it. I imagine that I'm gonna die to this shit. Just try to set up Karn, rest in peace. I don't have untapped red for Pyroblast immediately. So we will just spin our wheels and do something with Ponder. I think I'm giving up on casting Ruination. I don't know, I could just get Island, it's okay. The Ruination is not good as of right now, though. Exhibit A, the Ruination, that is not very good right now. I think I'll shuffle that. My opponent is going to get to become the pretty princess. And I did not draw a Force of Will, so I am shields down for my opponent's turn, unfortunately. I do have an Erode for Chaos Defiler, so I can erode that and play Karn. And that's, like, not terrible. Alright. New land comes down. Karn is here. Karn is tutoring. Notably, this is a dies for the purposes of rest in peace. Tormod's Crypt? Oh, do you think I have flow state? If I had kept a land last turn, I could Karn minus Pithing Needle their Karn, and Karn plus to 6 and keep my Karn alive. That might just be what I'm doing. Get an island, do this. I don't know, at the point where I'm plusing to keep Karn alive, unless I play Rip, this is a problem. Alright, I guess I am stocking up. Could get Force of Will blue card or backing up Karn. Kind of worried that I just die on my opponent's next turn, though. I didn't find another removal spell, so I can't just, like, junk Karn and then deal with Chaos Defiler afterwards. Alright, do those. I think I'm going to erode the thing that is immediately killing me. These are still huge problems. Maybe I will draw another erode. And I think I do this now, rather than let my opponent get a tapped land, but in exchange draw 3 more cards. Alright, Chaos Defiler trigger is out of the way. But my opponent is the Monarch with the One Ring and a Karn that is ready to tutor. I just lose a lot of times to Lattice immediately. Alright, so the One Ring can be turned into Coveted Jewel, Opponent draws 3, goes up to 9. Copy artifact, gets another coveted jewel. Ancient Tomb comes down. Now, are we at Paradox Engine? We are. And I think if my opponent plays anything that untaps all of that mana, I will just concede. Chain of Vapor, yeah, sure. I'm not going to sit here for a couple minutes while my opponent combos off. I think realistically with this many cards in hand, they've got it. That was a brutal beating of a league. GG. Let's go ahead and wrap this one up. Overall thoughts on the deck list. Not good. I think this one was dead in the water from the inception. I don't think Karn is supposed to be your finisher of choice in a blue-white control deck. I did my best to make it work. I do think that this could be improved. I don't think you should spend the time refining this deck, though. Like, Wrath of the Skies, destroying my own Rest in Peace came up a couple of times. That was problematic. Not being able to easily answer Planeswalkers was a problem. Even with Erode and Prismatic Ending, that still didn't feel like enough. Maybe the deck just needs a couple copies of Quantum Riddler, or I was going to say Murktide Regent. That's a bad example here because of Rest in Peace, but maybe the deck needs a few creatures. Conceptually, I thought Fourth Aerlingas was going to be better than it was, but as it turns out, because the deck had so much dead weight in it with Karn and Rest in Peace, and Karn was not able to just easily win games on its own, the extra cards that I was getting off of Monarch weren't always pushing me to the point where I could win. And as we saw in the flow state rounds, being the Rest in Peace deck that is trying to shut off the graveyard is worse than being the deck that is just using the graveyard in the first place. So we were working too hard to get wins in a format where Murktide Regents and Tamios and Felia plus Quantum Riddler exist that are just much easier avenues towards victory. So despite the fact that this is a pile of, legacy staples, it was not strong enough. If I ran it again, which I don't think I would, but if I did, I could put an Ensnaring Bridge in the sideboard to have something else that you could potentially do with Karn. The issue with Ensnaring Bridge in the blue deck, though, is that you get things like Force of Will and Force of Negation stuck in your hand, and you can't necessarily just go Hellbent and hide behind it forever. I could have tried to build this as an Ancient Tomb deck, but at the point where you're trying to be an Ancient Tomb deck that has Karn, why are you not playing one of the established ones? Like, why are you trying to force the blue-white control deck to fit Ancient Tomb into the mana base? I could have gone, like, Ancient Tomb, stock up, Karn. This would be driving me towards going away from, like, Brainstorms and Ponders, and I don't know that we would feel like blue-white control as so much as blue-white Stompy. So, Titania, I tried. I gave it my best effort here. I was defeated. But hopefully that gives you some things to think about if you're going to try to refine this idea further. All right, folks, I hope you enjoyed. Have a great rest of the day. And if you have anything you ever want to see on the channel, the donation deck list information is available in every video description. Have a great day. See ya.